Welcome to the IELTS Speaking Test, Part 1, Smart Strategy, Tips, and Tactics. In this video, we'll go through all kinds of different strategies to get a high score on Part 1 of the speaking test. Are you someone that feels this way when you think about taking the speaking test and say something like, I am afraid that when I go to the speaking test, I will be so scared I will not be able to talk? Well, what we're going to do for you today is show you many smart strategies and tips that will give you great confidence on Part 1 of the speaking test. First, let's do an overview of the speaking test. The total test is about 11 to 14 minutes, and it's broken down to a number of different categories. The first minute is an introduction with the examiner, and then Part 1 will begin, which is about 3 to 4 minutes long. After Part 1 is Part 2, and it's roughly 3 to 4 minutes long as well. Part 3, additionally, is about 4 to 5 minutes long. We break Part 1 down into two different parts, Part 1A, which we call Small Talk, and Part 1B, which we call General Topic. Part 2 we've labeled Tell 3 Stories, and Part 3 is called Give Your Big Ideas. Throughout this video and throughout our series of videos, when you see this red bullseye in the video and text that is highlighted in a red color, that means the video is explaining a strategy or a tip or some advice for you to focus on in order to get a high score on the IELTS speaking test. Let's take a minute and define the three parts of the speaking test. And there's a difference between IELTS official terms for the test and what we refer to the terms at the English Leadership Academy. The first part is the same, an introduction. The IELTS official terms for the other parts we've changed a little bit to make sense. Part 1 they call interview. For us, we've broken it down to Part 1A of Small Talk, Part 1B of General Topics. Part 2 they call Long Term. We break that down into Tell 3 Stories. And Part 3 they label as a discussion, and we call that Share Big Ideas. IELTS is like a puzzle or a game. We believe that just like a puzzle or a game, the better you understand the rules of the game, the better you will perform in the game. Here we will teach you the rules of the game through many smart strategies and tips that will allow you to succeed on the IELTS speaking test. Let's review the purpose of the speaking test. The purpose is to assess your speaking ability in English. Can you speak clearly? Can you expand and build on your thoughts? Can you use the correct language to describe things like things that happened in the past, things that are happening in the present, or things that will happen in the future? And the purpose of the test is not to assess your intelligence, your knowledge of specific topics, your ability to use academic words, or your ability to use odd or funny phrases. And the first part of the speaking test is the introduction, and this is where you meet the examiner. And this part is not graded, but the examiner will greet you and ask you for your full name and the city you live in. And the examiner will ask for your ID and verify your ID. It's very factual and short. So here the examiner will formally introduce him or herself and then do an identity check. And it will sound something like this. Hello, my name is Joe, the examiner. Could you please tell me your full name? What should I call you? Can you tell me where you are from? Can I please see your identification? And so that you are prepared on test day, what happens is that you'll be waiting in a room with other candidates for your turn to do the speaking test. Let's hope you don't have that panic attack. The examiner will take you from the waiting room and you will join the examiner in a private examining room. Your chairs will face each other on the opposite side of the desk. The examiner will have a timer and a tape recording device to record your conversation. We believe there's only one way to get comfortable with this test, and that's to practice. So let's practice. What we're going to do is practice with a purpose. So if you're with someone, you can go back to the previous slide and have one person pretend to be the examiner and the other be the candidate. If you do not have someone with you, we will provide you with the opportunity to practice on here. We will ask you the questions and you can answer them. Yes, we understand. This seems crazy to practice something so basic. However, practicing with a purpose will make all of your fears go away. So as we go through and practice, I will ask the questions and you can respond. I'll be the examiner. Hello, my name is Joe. Could you please tell me your full name? What shall I call you? Can you tell me where you are from? Can I please see your identification? Very well, thank you. And again, all answers are short and factual. And you will just give your country name for where you are from. And after the introduction is finished, part 1 will begin. And this is the beginning of your speaking test. Part 1 has 2 sections. We refer to them as Part 1A and Part 1B. First, we'll talk about Part 1A, which we've labeled Small Talk. Think of this as a normal conversation that you would have with any person you just met. Relax and speak normal. Pretend you're in a coffee shop and you have just met a new friend. So as Part 1A begins, it is really just small talk that you would have with anybody. So these are real 2020 speaking test questions. The examiner would ask, tell me about your hometown, or do you work or study? And again, Part 1A is small talk. Be pleasant, be relaxed, and have a nice conversation. Expand on your answers. Do not make the examiner ask you to expand your answers. So as the test begins, it always begins this way. And you're going to talk about either where you live or what do you do. And just be prepared for both of these. And the what do you do is going to break down in between work or study. And they will ask you whether you work or study. And remember, this is a speaking test. The examiner has a job to do. The examiner needs to assess your speaking ability. So if the question is, where do you live? Do not respond with only the name of the city. It just doesn't make any sense. How can the examiner assess your English speaking ability when you only provide 1 or 2 words? So as you practice for this test and as you take the test, remember, you're going to expand and build on your answer. So in this case, let's just say the topic is, what city do you live in? So you're going to ask yourself questions like what, where, why, who, and what is the name of your city? Why do people visit your city? Who are the types of people that live in your city? Where is your city located? In other words, just expand about that answer about your city. And keep in mind, at the beginning of this test, there's only 4 main topics that are used in Part 1A. Work or study, and hometown or your home, like your apartment or your house. So here we will break down each of those 4 different topics. First, we'll talk about work and work questions. So if you work, you'll get these kind of questions. What do you do? Where do you work? Why did you choose that job? Is it a popular job in your country? Do you like your job? Do you get along well with your colleagues? What was your first day like? What responsibilities do you have at work? If you had the chance, would you change your job? Do you plan to continue with your job in the future? And originally, when the examiner asked you if you work or study, if your answer was study, then here are a series of questions about studying. What do you study? Where do you study that? Why did you choose that subject? Is it a popular subject in your country? Do you like that subject? Do you get along well with your colleagues? What was your first day like? What are the main aspects of that subject? If you had the chance, would you change your subject? Do you plan to get a job in that same field as your subject? And if the question is about your hometown, here are a series of questions about your hometown. Where is your hometown? Do you like your hometown? Do you often visit your hometown? What is your hometown like? What is the oldest place in your hometown? What is there for a foreigner to do or see in your hometown? How could your hometown be improved? Has your hometown changed much since you were a child? Is there good public transportation in your hometown? Do you think your hometown is a good place to bring up a child? And if the question is about your home, here are a series of questions about your home. Where is your home? Do you live in a house or a flat? Who do you live with? Are there many rooms in your house? What is your favorite room? How are the walls decorated? What would you change about your home? Do you plan to live there in the future? What facilities are there near your home? What is your neighborhood like? Do most people live in a house in your country? And remember, what is important to the examiner here? 25% of your scores on fluency and coherence, 25% on using a wide vocabulary, 25% on grammar and accuracy, and 25% on pronunciation. But it's 0% for things like your intelligence, your ability to use academic words, and also your ability to use funny or odd phrases. What we are going to do is really work on practicing with a purpose. We want to know what the examiner really wants to know. And we want to focus on the strategy for that exercise. When we practice with a purpose, it's important to practice, but it's more important to practice with a purpose. Focus on what is important. So let's practice the question of, tell me about your hometown. Step 1 would be breathe, smile, and prepare to talk slowly. I always talk fast when we're nervous. Step 2, listen to the question. Step 3, in order to expand and build on your answers, add the question of why, what, how, when, who to the end of the question you are asked. And step 4, try to give a 30 to 40 second answer when you provide your answer to the examiner. So let's work on practicing with a purpose. When we do that, we're going to do a number of factors here. First, we're going to have a timer. We are going to time ourselves when we practice so that we can practice under test conditions. So use an app on your phone, a watch, anything that can tell you how long your answer is. And second, have a recording device. Yes, you're going to record yourself. Have something to record your voice and listen to it later and review it. It's the best way to learn our speaking ability. Okay, so let's practice. Here is an example of an answer that I would give for the question of where is your hometown? And I would expand and build on that. And I would say, I grew up in a town called, it is a city of about 500,000 people and is located on the coast. It has beautiful beaches that span many kilometers in length. The view of the beaches is made even more spectacular because the city is surrounded by lush, green mountains. People travel from all over the world to enjoy our scenic city. While the tourists are here, they enjoy many excellent seafood restaurants. It is very easy to find fresh seafood throughout my hometown. Okay, now it's your turn to practice. Make sure you have your tape recorder out and your timer. I'm also going to give you 30 seconds for your answer. So I'm going to ask you the same question. Where is your hometown? You can start now. Okay, your time is up. You can finish recording and now go back and listen to your recording. How did you do? this is one of the first times you've done it, don't be disappointed. As you do this multiple times, it will improve significantly. So as you continue to go through and do this, time yourself and record yourself and listen to it. And listen to see what things that you can do better in the future. And then, after about 2 minutes, the examiner will change the conversation. It's a little weird if you're not prepared, as the conversation just changes. Part 1A is over. Part 1B begins with general topics. So we'll call this Part 1B of the speaking test. In Part 1B, the examiner will pick a general topic and ask you questions about that topic. So here's an actual example of a 2020 IELTS test question for Part 1B. Talk about a photo you have in your home. So the general topic is about photos. So photos is the general topic, and the question was, talk about a photo you have in your home. So again, we need to ask, what does the examiner really expect to hear? He expects to hear, where is this photo in your home? What is the photo about? Who is displayed in the photo, and why do you have the photo displayed? So in this section, we're going to talk about how important it is to expand and build on your answer. In this case, the topic is photos and a photo in our house. So we're automatically going to ask questions like, what, where, why, who? And things like, what is the picture of? Where is the picture displayed? Why do you have the picture displayed? Who is the picture of? These are automatic questions you're going to ask about each topic. So in Part 1B, you already know what the examiner wants to hear. They want you to expand and build on your answers. So don't make the examiner ask you a series of follow-up questions. You're an expert on every topic within Part 1. Show off your speaking skills, relax, and talk normally. Be enthused and happy. The next number of pages will give you most of the topics and questions for Part 1B of the speaking test. After you look at all of those topics, we'll then provide you with some smart strategies to practice Part 1B. As you look at the topics, you'll notice that you do not need any extra knowledge to talk about any of these topics. The first category is art. Here are a series of questions they could ask about art. Are you good at art? Did you learn art at school when you were a child? What kind of art do you like? Is art popular in your country? Have you ever been to an art gallery? Birthdays. Here are a series of questions about birthdays. Do you enjoy birthdays? Do you usually celebrate your birthday? What did you do on your last birthday? Can you remember a birthday you enjoyed as a child? Do most people celebrate their birthdays with a party in your country? Which birthdays are important in your country? Next topic is childhood. Here are a series of questions. Did you enjoy your childhood? What is your first memory of your childhood? Did you have many friends when you were a child? What did you enjoy as a child? Do you think it is better for children to grow up in the city or the countryside? And here are some test questions about clothes. Are clothes important to you? What kind of clothes do you wear? Do you ever wear the traditional clothes in your country? Where do you usually buy your clothes? Have you ever worn a uniform? Do most people in your country follow fashion? Test questions about computers. Do you often use a computer? How do you usually get online? Do you prefer desktops or laptops? What do you use your computer for? Do you think it's important to learn how to use a computer? And questions about daily routine. When do you usually get up in the morning? Do you usually have the same routine every day? What is your daily routine? Is your routine the same as it was when you were a child? Do you think it's important to have a daily routine? And questions about dictionaries. Do you often use a dictionary? What do you use dictionaries for? What kinds of dictionaries do you think are most useful? Do you think dictionaries are useful for learning language? What kind of information can you find in a dictionary? Questions about evenings. What do you often do in the evening? Do you do the same thing every evening? Do you prefer to spend your evening with family or friends? Do you ever work or study in the evenings? What is a popular activity for your people in your country in the evenings? Do you do the same thing in the evenings as you did when you were a child? And questions about family and friends. Do you spend much time with your family? Who are you closest to in your family? Do you prefer spending time with your family or friends? Who is your best friend? Are you still friends with people from your childhood? Is family important in your country? And test questions about flowers. Do you like flowers? What is your favorite flower? When is the last time you gave someone flowers? Do any flowers have a special meaning in your country? Why do you think women like flowers more than men? And here are some questions about food. What is your favorite food? Have you always liked the same food? Is there any food you dislike? What is a common meal in your country? Do you have a healthy diet? What do you think of fast food? And here are some questions about going out. Do you often go out in the evenings? What do you like to do when you go out? Do you prefer going out on your own or with friends? How often do you go out in a week? Where do most people go out in your country? And here are some questions about happiness. Are you a happy person? What usually makes you happy? Does the weather ever affect how you feel? What makes you feel unhappy? Do you think people in your country are generally happy people? And here are some questions about hobbies. Do you have a hobby? What equipment do you need for it? Do you think hobbies should be shared with other people? Did you have a hobby as a child? What hobbies are popular in your country? Why do you think people have hobbies? And here are questions about the internet. How often do you go online? What do you use the internet for? How do you get online? Do you have your own computer? What's your favorite website? Do you think children should be allowed unsupervised access to the internet? And here are some questions about leisure time. What is your favorite leisure activity? What did you enjoy doing in your free time as a child? Do you prefer to spend your free time with other people or alone? What is a common leisure activity in your country? Do most people in your country get 2 days off a week? Do you think leisure time is important? And here are some questions about music. Do you like music? What is your favorite type of music? Can you sing? Did you learn music at school? If you could learn a musical instrument, what would it be? Do you think music is important? Here are some questions about neighbors and neighborhood. Do you like your neighbors? Are neighbors usually close to each other in your country? What is your neighborhood like? Do you think your neighborhood is a good place for children? How could your neighborhood be improved? And do you think it is important to have a good relationship with your neighbors? These are questions about newspapers. How do you usually get your news? Do you often read newspapers? What kind of news do you usually follow? How do most people get the news in your country? Do you think international news is important? These are questions about pets. Do you have a pet? Do you like animals? What is your favorite animal? What is a popular pet in your country? Did you have a pet as a child? Why do people have pets? Here are some test questions about reading. Do you often read? What is your favorite kind of book to read? Do you often read newspapers? Do you have any ebooks? What books did you read as a child? Do you think it is important to encourage children to read? These are common questions about shopping. Do you like shopping? What's your favorite shop? Do you prefer shopping alone or with others? What kinds of shops are there where you live? Have you ever bought anything online? Do you think men and women have different opinions about shopping? Here are some test questions about sports. Do you like sports? What is your favorite sport? Do you often watch sports on TV? Did you play sports as a child? What is the most popular sport in your country? How do most people in your country keep fit? These are some common questions about TV. Do you often watch TV? What sorts of things do you watch on TV? What is your favorite TV program? Do you ever watch foreign TV programs or films? What did you watch on TV when you were a child? Do you think children should watch TV? And here are some common questions about transportation. How did you get here today? What is your favorite mode of transportation? Do you ever use public transportation? Do you like the transportation system in your country? What is the difference between taking the bus and taking the train? And finally, here are some common questions about weather. What is the weather like today? What is your favorite type of weather? Do you like the weather in your country? Is the weather the same in all parts of your country? Does the weather affect the way you feel? Does the weather in your country ever affect transportation? Earlier in this video, we discussed how the examiner scores your exam on these 4 criteria. Let's look into more detail about each of these. So as we review, what is important to the examiner? 25% of your score is fluency and coherence, 25% a wide vocabulary, 25% grammar and accuracy, and 25% pronunciation. You now have a great list of real test questions and topics to practice with. In a few minutes, we will go over some strategies to use when you are practicing with a purpose. On your own, please follow our strategies with each of these topics and all of the questions. Your goal is to become very comfortable choosing any topic or question and being able to effectively speak for 30 to 40 seconds on that topic. So let's take a closer look at fluency and coherence. And here's what the British Council has to say. This refers to your ability to speak at length, including organizing ideas logically and appropriately signposting. This also refers to your ability to express and justify opinions, to analyze, discuss, and speculate about issues without long pauses or repetition of the same words. And here's one of the most important concepts on the IELTS speaking test, and that's expand and build. And as you are speaking about a topic, expand and build on what you say by adding some details. Here's an example of a man talking to a woman. He asks, "What do you do?" Her first answer is, "I am a teacher." That doesn't work on the IELTS test. So she corrects her answer and says, "I have been a high school mathematics teacher in New York for over 5 years. And 25% of your score is based on what IELTS calls Lexical Resource. And Lexical Resource is really a fancy term for range of vocabulary. The British Council, which is just an excellent source of material, discusses it this way. This criteria focuses on the range of vocabulary a candidate uses. Generally, the wider the range of vocabulary or expression used correctly and appropriately, the better a candidate will score. Additionally, 25% of your score is based upon grammatical range and accuracy. And again, from the British Council, one of the founders of the IELTS test, they discuss range and accuracy as the criteria focuses on the range and accuracy of the grammar with which the test taker speaks. So can you be very accurate, yet also have big range in your vocabulary? And finally, 25% of your score is based on pronunciation. Pronunciation has a number of factors. If we go to the British Council website again, if you go to learnenglish.britishcouncil.org, you'll find this phonetic chart that the British Council gives you. And it really is handy. And if you take your time and you go through this, download the chart, and it's an interactive device that will work with you. So between recording your conversations and trying very hard to improve your pronunciation through the use of the phonetic chart, I think you'll find great success. Okay, so now we've been through a long list of topics and questions, and we discussed what the examiner wants to score us on. So now let's start to practice. Let's choose the topic of sports for our first try. To recap, the questions were, do you like sports? What is your favorite sport? Do you often watch sports on TV? Did you play sports as a child? What is the most popular sport in your country? And how do most people in your country keep? Okay, so before you try with your practice, we're going to give you a sample answer. And the question is, do you like sports? Have your tape recorder ready and your timer. And here would be my answer. I really enjoy sports. I love to watch different sporting events, and I also really enjoy participating in many sports. My favorite sports to watch on TV are golf and also American football. I've been a fan of watching both sports since I was a child. I find that watching these sports on TV is very exciting, and I love to cheer for a certain player or a team to win. As I mentioned earlier, I also really like to participate in many sports. I enjoy these sports primarily because it gives me the opportunity to get a good workout in. I love exercise. My favorite sports activities are biking, paddleboarding, hiking, and going to the gym. All of these activities can be quite strenuous, and I strive to stay healthy and fit. Now it's your turn to practice. So we've gone over everything that you need to practice with. Have your timer ready, have your tape recorder ready, and here's your question. Do you like sports? I'll give you 30 seconds to compile your answer. Okay, there's 30 seconds. How did you do? Did you feel comfortable in your answer? Did you expand and build? Once you review your tape recording, you'll be able to see for yourself how you did with range of vocabulary, fluency, coherence, pronunciation. And you can judge for yourself or have a friend listen and be able to give their feedback so we can practice again. Okay, let's do another question. This one we will use the topic of reading. And to recap, here are some of those questions that go with this topic. Do you often read? What is your favorite kind of book to read? Do you often read newspapers? Do you have any ebooks? What books did you read as a child? Do you think it is important to encourage children to read? Okay, so now it's your turn to practice. Have your tape recorder ready, have your timer ready, and we'll go over the question we just discussed. I'll give you 30 seconds to speak your answer. And the question is, do you like to read? The timer will start now. Okay, that's 30 seconds. How did you do? Don't be upset about your early attempts at trying to do the speaking test. The more you do this over and over and over again, the easier it gets. Make sure you record yourself so you can go back and listen to it or have a friend listen to it. But just continue to do it. Continue to trust the process. It will get easier. You will improve significantly. It's up to you to practice hard. Okay, so now it's my turn to answer that same question that you just did. So I'll get my stopwatch ready, my tape recorder. I'm going to answer the same question of, do you like to read? And this would be my sample answer. I read a lot. I spend many hours each day reading a variety of different articles. The vast majority of my reading is done on the internet, where I will read news from many different apps and websites, and I also really enjoy reading about sports on my favorite app. It is interesting to look back and see how my reading has changed over the years. When I was younger, I would read the newspaper and many different magazines. But with the changing technology over the years, newspapers and magazines are now quite rare. All of the content can now be found online, on websites, apps, or even more so on social media like Facebook. It surprises me how much news I get from my Facebook feed every day. So now you have all the tools you need to go through and practice. You've got your stopwatch, your timer, you've got the form that we can use for you to practice, you've got all the questions. So continue to keep practicing over and over. Make sure you listen to yourself afterwards. Really try to use constructive feedback to continue to improve on your speaking. You've done a great job. Now it's up to you to continue. We hope you found this video very helpful and very informative. You can also get more information on our Facebook site or our website. We ask you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get all the future upcoming videos on IELTS as well. Good luck in your studying.